Hey, warmer from the low! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in a few minutes by one of our good friends, Curtis Rogers. He does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, taking a look at this great game of college basketball that we all know and love. This time of year, he actually does great work as the Seattle Mariners pre- and post-game host as well, so he wears many hats. He does so also well. We're going to be talking a lot about what we've seen here in the Big Ten in the offseason. Additionally, he's out there in the great state of Washington, so we have to address what we're seeing out of Gonzaga. What can we expect out of them this upcoming season? With that Big Ten chatter, we're going to be talking about Washington, how these teams out west seem to struggle a little bit more with the travel than the teams out east as well. We'll take a look at some mid-majors on the West Coast as well, so nice wide-ranging chat here with Curtis. I will say we did see a little bit of news with Kansas over the last 48 or so hours. They're starting to add a little bit of depth. That's really the lone news and notes that we saw in college basketball over the last 48 or so hours. The fact that they bring in Cole Rosario, that should be able to help them out a little bit. So I have to give a little bit of credit where it is due, and we continue to keep my eyes peeled for what we're seeing in the transfer portal, what have you. But we are starting to run out of, shall we say, news in college basketball. A lot of these rosters are starting to be very much set, so we are going to be doing a lot of two-part chats here over the next few months to get set for the upcoming college basketball season, and lots of conference previews as well, as we're going to get those gas up within the next few days. I'm currently in a run of doing 20 straight days of hosting over at VSiN, so it's been a little bit overwhelming there, but I can assure you that the Big Sky and the Big South, those are going to be done within the next 7 days as well. So that's a little bit of the lay of the land that we've got there. And if you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. We did not really get in any of those Twitter/X questions today, so how about if we dive in right now with Curtis Rogers, and everything is powered by Edge Boost. Over at Edge Boost, you're able to get access to their funds whenever you want, wherever you want. It is set up to make sure that bettors are always having a safe place to get down their money and to be able to make sure that everything is all improved and on the up and up. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize the promo code of Greg, GREG. That gets you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's dive in with Curtis Rogers. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at @AKidFromKen altogether. And Curtis, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, it is a busy time or not such a busy time, but it's going to get busy here as kids head back to campus over the next few months, and really excited about this upcoming college basketball season, especially coming off the heels of last year. And obviously with NIL being what it is, with the portal being what it is, you're seeing more and more guys stick around. So getting to see a lot of continuity across the country in terms of just guys coming back. So I'm really excited for what we're going to see this upcoming season.
Oh, I am as well. And out there in the Big Ten, I think that it's just such an interesting conference in general, because I do feel like out of all the conferences out there, this conference really had the best of them all, because we saw the coaching hires, being able to have DeVries Square go on over to Indiana. You have Ben McCollum, who's going to be able to do a nice job of locking it down, in my opinion, over at Iowa. And I just take a look at the way that things have all been able to come about for this conference. And I really do think that the Big Ten has been able to do a good job of just being able to maximize talent.
Yeah, and another name brought over too is Nico Medved going to Minnesota. He had a lot of good years at Colorado State. A lot of new energy brought to the conference. And it's a conference, Greg, we all know the big thing looming over that conference is they have no national champions since 2000 in men's college basketball. And we've all kind of looked at that conference as one that, maybe they need to kind of get with the times. And I really like those coaching moves brought in to the conference. And obviously, you bring in 4 new faces last year to the conference in Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC, who have played a much different brand of basketball than what the Big Ten has kind of been known for. So I think it's a conference right now, Greg, that you're definitely having to pay a lot more attention to it. They've come close, obviously, in years past, with Michigan being a multiple-time runner-up, Purdue being a runner-up as well. Illinois has had a lot of great years. Ohio State's had a lot of great years. Haven't been able to get over that hump, but definitely positioning themselves much better I think, heading into 2025 and beyond than they have over the course of the last couple of decades.
Oh, I agree with you. And it certainly is a new look conference because, well, we did see just so many teams in general enter into the conference last season. So very, very strange to be seeing a conference in which you've got the likes of USC and UCLA in there. But that said, with your bunch in Washington, your neck of the woods, it's been really interesting their offseason because we recall the way that they fumbled things last year. They had great Osabor, and they had great Osabor. That was about it. Now they've been able to distribute the wealth a little bit more, and I do want to get your thoughts here because I just feel like this team has done a little bit more right, and maybe they're not going to be like a top 3 team in the conference or anything like that, but I think that there is such a better chance of them being able to ascend this season.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a chance, a really good chance, that they could really contend for an NCAA tournament berth, especially based off of all the new faces that we've seen join this program. Desmond Claude, obviously, being the most recent one. Bryson Tucker is another really good player that they've added. Wesley Yates, he returns to Washington after a year away at USC. I think this Washington team right now just kind of realizing, what, we just need a lot of talent around this ball club. We need more guys coming back. I thought it was great that they were able to get Zoom Diallo back with that team, especially considering how highly recruited he was coming out of high school. He's a local kid. I really like what he could do. I mean, heck, Frank Kepning, Greg, I think has been in college since you and I were.
The Reagan administration.
Exactly. He's back. He'll be playing some big minutes. I really like J.J. Mandikit, the kid out of Utah, the true freshman point guard. I mean, he gives that team, I think, a lot of really cool options, in their backcourt. So I think this Husky team is definitely on the up and up heading into this upcoming season. One that I think there will definitely be pressure on Danny Sprinkle to deliver a winner, at least get to, maybe the NIT, but definitely an upper half of the Big Ten finish, I think is not a crazy expectation to have for this Washington team. The toughest thing, though, is just getting all these new parts to work together, but that's just how it is in college basketball these days.
Oh, it certainly is, and that is so much of the struggle to be able to just get these guys to be able to mesh, but I do think that these guys, they are going to be able to do a solid job. You mentioned it with Yates coming back to Washington. I thought that was so critical for them, and I do think that things are very much looking much better for this squad. As joining me on the show, we do have Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And with this conference, I think that it's a very intriguing one in that I think that they might have the best team in all of college basketball in Purdue. And it's not because they picked up a ton of guys, so the Oscar Clough edition, he was at the top of all of college basketball with regards to his rebounding. That's a very good add, but the way that you bring back Fletcher Lawyer, the way that you bring back this entire backcourt, it really just speaks to me. And I think that this is a squad in general that I think is really going to be able to ascend this season.
Yeah, and speaking of continuity, I mean, Purdue has been maybe the most stable program in terms of retaining guys in this NIL era. Very few guys have transferred in, very few have transferred out over the last few years. I believe they were the only team in last year's Sweet 16 where their starting five was made up of guys entirely from Purdue. Now, Oscar Clough, that's an interesting one. Obviously, coming from out here, playing with Washington State, has had a lot of really good seasons, especially last year for South Dakota State. A really good basketball program they run there. And as we know, Matt Painter loves himself some big men. And Oscar Clough fits that bill just about better than anybody, at least on the transfer market. So that's somebody that is obviously going to have a lot of impact on this Purdue season. And, I mean, look, Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, those guys have been part of some of the biggest games in Purdue basketball history. You're not going to get much more experience than what those two bring to the table. I mean, yeah, this Purdue team, if you're looking for a team that is going to break this long stretch of titleless seasons in the Big Ten, absolutely, it's Purdue. And I'm looking also at their home and road opponents in conference. The only West Coast trips they have to make during conference play, UCLA and USC, I would imagine they're going to hit both those on the same road trip. So it only looks like they're going to be coming out west one time this season. So Purdue definitely with a nice little draw there, getting one trip to the West Coast and it being against the LA schools.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that as well, because it did feel like in terms of the travel that we saw this past season, that the teams that were in the Eastern time zone and the Central time zone going west, they had a lot more success than those West Coast teams going out east. I've got a few thoughts on that, and how about if we hit those on the flip side? And additionally, Curtis, he does a great job covering all things college basketball. He's based out here on the West Coast. Have to talk about Gonzaga. Have to talk about some of his West Coast mid-majors as well, and that'll come up on the flip side right here on Coach Guess Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beast and Family Podcast. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coach Guess Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beast and Family Podcast. Great to be rejoined by Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. Follow him on the old Twitter/X at A Kid From Ken. And we left off talking about how the travel, it felt like it was just rough for these teams heading from west to east rather than east to west. I do think that part of it might have been what you were laying out there before with Purdue, the fact that they've only got one trip to the West Coast coming up for this upcoming season. Meanwhile, these teams that are on the West Coast, they have to travel out to the Midwest, the Eastern time zone quite a few times. I know that Mick Cronin very much talked about that quite a bit. So, I want to get your thoughts here. If you think that this is going to last into season number 2 and just how we've been gauging the travel and now 1 year under our belt in this new look Big Ten with it expanding to the West Coast.
Yeah, looking at Washington's away schedule this year, you've got trips to Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers. You're obviously going to do home and away against Oregon, UCLA, and USC, so those road trips aren't going to be as physically taxing on you. But, Illinois and Indiana, they're in the central time zone. That's 2 time zones away. Actually, Indiana, I believe, is the eastern time zone. So that's multiple time zones away. Maryland is on the East Coast. Nebraska is central. Northwestern central. Purdue is in Indiana, so they're eastern time zone. Rutgers is obviously touching the Atlantic Ocean. So their road games, their road-only games this year, going to be very tough in terms of travel. They're going to be racking up a lot of miles. Now, the teams that do come to Seattle, Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, like those teams, they're not used to making that kind of trip. And especially their body clock's thinking it's going to be a lot later in the day than what it actually is. I would imagine there's probably going to be some 7 p.m. tip-offs, maybe even an 8 p.m. tip-off here or there. That's going to be late for a lot of those teams that are in the Eastern time zone in the Big Ten. So there is a disadvantage to the travel, but there's also an advantage to it as well. And, teams out here on the West Coast, there's just such a small sample size to see how it really impacts. But I would imagine getting those home games against these tired teams with making the cross-country trip, that is going to be something that a lot of these teams are hoping plays to their strengths over the course of this upcoming college basketball season.
Yep, I think so as well, and I think that it very much is going to be as well, and I take a look at just what we're going to be getting in the Big Ten in general, and I'm very intrigued by this team, Michigan, because they bring in Yaxel Lendeborg. I thought that was an amazing addition for them, and when it comes to this bunch in general, I think that they could be the biggest competitors to Purdue. I just don't think that there's any question that Purdue is that head and shoulders number 1 team in this conference, but with what Michigan was able to do in year number 1, the fact that they bring in a guy in Elliot Kadu, who I recognize that he's not necessarily an amazing three-point shooter, but at the same time, he's, in my opinion, exactly what they needed because they turned the ball over so much. He's a steady hand. I think that Michigan really has a chance to be able to ascend this upcoming season.
Yeah, that transfer class that they brought in, Ade Mara coming in from UCLA, they just have a lot of really good talent coming in. You bring up Lendeborg. That's a guy that was probably going to go lottery if he had stayed in the NBA draft this, upcoming. Had he stayed, you're looking at a potential lottery pick coming out of UAB, but he goes to Michigan. Dusty May has really turned things around coming off of the Juwan Howard run over there in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He won't have the luxury of having Vladislav Golding around, as that was his guy from FAU. He graduated after last season. He's out of eligibility, but to replace him with Mara coming over from UCLA, that's going to be really exciting. And it's not like they're bringing in, scrubs either from their freshman recruiting either. It's a nice little mix. Trey McKinney, guy from Michigan, he comes in, 4 or 5-star player, probably going to be asked to make some contributions too in his freshman season. So I really like what this Michigan team can do. I think they are going to be a team certainly in the top 10 and probably top 7 or 8 teams in the country. So I think what they are able to do this season is going to be really fun to watch, especially considering just how much talent they've got up and down that roster.
Yep, I think so as well. And I think that they are going to be an incredible team to be able to take note of. And we have to address this team as well because I did want to talk a lot of Big Ten with you, Curtis, but I know you do such an amazing job of being able to cover all things college basketball. And I know that out there in your neck of the woods, there's a lot of buzz about Gonzaga. And I want to get your thoughts on them for the upcoming season because 2 years ago it was a little bit down, but it wasn't too alarming. Last year, I had some high expectations for Gonzaga. I thought that they were going to be one of the best teams in all of college basketball, gave a gallant fight against Houston, but overall, it was very much a disappointment for them last season. How do you see things playing out for them this year with bringing back Graham Ike, but having quite a bit of a new look backcourt for this upcoming year?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season for this Gonzaga team. Definitely not as deep as what they have been over the last few years, but obviously still making a lot of moves in the portal. They have been a team that has really hit the portal and has done so aggressively under Mark Few's guidance over the last 4 or 5 seasons. You've got guys like Tyon Grant Foster coming over from Grand Canyon. I think that is somebody that is definitely going to be an interesting player to watch. There was a lot of expectation heading into last season for Michael Ajayi. He did not live up to that. He hits the portal again. And I thought the addition of Adam Miller is another one, too, coming over from ASU. Miller, I believe, was a former five-star kid coming into college. He went to Illinois originally, then transferred to ASU. Things kind of unraveled with him and Bobby Hurley to where it was just clearly an untenable situation between the Sun Devils and just kind of how everything went down last season. So Miller hits the portal. He ends up in Spokane. So maybe a bit of a reclamation project and a guy that I think a lot of Gonzaga fans have been waiting very patiently to see if this is a guy that's going to return to his old form, his form back when he played for Eastern Washington. And that's Steele Venters, who has missed the last 2 seasons due to injury, was a really, really nice piece for those Eastern Washington teams under David Riley when they had Cedric Howard there. So that's a guy that Zags fans, they've been waiting around on. I don't know what to fully expect with him heading into this upcoming season, but you did mention Graham Ike returning. I think that's a great starting point for this Gonzaga team because teams would kill to have that kind of veteran talent in their front court, and he has been one of the most reliable big men in the country over the last 3 to 4 years.
Yep, he certainly has been, and it's going to be so interesting to see what we get out of Gonzaga and pretty much your swan song season out there in the WCC as Pac-12 is going to be coming into form, and that's going to make things just very interesting in general. And just how do you take a look at some of these West Coast teams, and is there one or two that you feel like might be a little bit under the radar? Because I do think that with Gonzaga, they're a very intriguing team, but as we know out there in the Big West, there's a lot of talent. We did see a few coaching changes with like UC San Diego losing their man, but I do think that they did a good job of being able to retain from within, and I do think that a team like St. Mary's is always one to watch out for, with them always being a team that brings back quite a few guys.
Oh yeah, St. Mary's, you can never ever count them out. They're always going to be at the top of the WCC, and you mentioned it being Gonzaga's swan song. I don't think there's any program in the country more excited to see them leave the WCC than the St. Mary's Gales.
Other than Grand Canyon, maybe.
Sure, yeah, exactly. It feels like those two teams are probably going to be the cream of the crop in the WCC for the foreseeable future. Yeah, UC San Diego, I mean, what a magical season they had this last year. Winning 30 ball games, taking Michigan to the brink in the first round, nearly pulling off the upset. UC Irvine, another team, had a phenomenal season going 32-7. I'm really interested to see what UNLV pulls off this season. Moving on from Kevin Kruger, bringing in Josh Pastner. I know Pastner's time at Georgia Tech didn't end, great, but he's always been a really big energy guy. And that's a program that obviously they're in your neck of the woods, Greg. Boggles the mind how UNLV still has not been able to become that power out west that they were in the 90s. They're right next to California. They're just, on the other side is the state of Texas, pretty fertile recruiting ground. I would imagine Pastner is going to hit the portal pretty hard as well. So that's a team that I am excited to see over the next couple of years, because I think college basketball is better when there is a lot more talent over here on the West Coast, because you can't just have the same 3 or 4 schools, the Gonzagas, the Arizonas, the UCLAs, the Oregons. We need a little bit more representation out west, and I think if you look for a sleeping giant, I would say UNLV is one that definitely has piqued a lot of people's interest over the last few months.
Oh, I agree with you. I do think that it's going to be great to see what we get moving forward out of UNLV. I thought that was a tremendous hire that they made with Josh Pastner. He's been able to do a great job of being able to hit the transfer portal, and a man that is always going hard and doing a tremendous job of looking at all things college basketball and really all things sports. That'd be you, Curtis, because this time of year, I know that you are very busy. You're doing a tremendous job with the Seattle Mariners. You're doing a great job with all the shows over at 710 Seattle Sports and a whole lot more. So let the good people at home know it's on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, we've got a lot coming up here. SeattleSports.com, Seattle Sports on our YouTube page. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @akidfromkent. The big college basketball news of the day here in the state of Washington is Washington receiving a commitment from one Brandon Roy Jr. If you want to feel so old, if you want to feel the oldest you've ever felt, that's who is going to be enrolling in college here in the 2025-2026 season. So some fun reaction to that, but also a lot of great stuff. Yeah, we always got our eyes peeled on the portal, peeled on NIL. Just gearing up for a great season of college basketball come the fall. And Greg, always appreciate hopping on with you. Love our college basketball chats, and can't wait for the next one.
Absolutely. And Curtis, he does such an incredible job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. And every single time he joins me, he lends such incredible insight. So a big thanks, Curtis, for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And if you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_81. Keep in mind, Larsium, maybe does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I'm coming at you guys every single day on this podcast, regular season and off season, to get you set for what is going to be the greatest college basketball season, in my opinion, of all time. So I will be back with you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you.